Welcome to this tutorial. Today we will be learning about a poem, The Soul's Prayer by Sarojini Naidu. Let us first read the poem. The Soul's Prayer by Sarojini Naidu. In childhood's pride, I say to thee, O thou who madest me of thy bread, speak, Master, and reveal to me thine inmost laws of life and death. Give me to drink its joy and pain, which thine eternal hand can meet. For my insatiate soul would drain earth's utmost bitter, utmost sweet. Spare me no bliss, no pain of strife, withhold no gift or grief I crave. The intricate lore of love and life, and mystic knowledge of the grave. Lord, thou didst answer stern and low, Child, I will hearken to thy prayer, and thy unconquered soul shall know all passionate rapture and despair. Thou shalt drink deep of joy and fame, and love shall burn thee like a fire, and pain shall cleanse thee like a flame, to purge the dross from thy desire. So shall thy chastened spirit yearn to seek from its blind prayer release, and spent and pardoned, sue to learn the simple secret of my peace. I, bending from my sevenfold height, will teach thee of my quickening grace. Life is a prism of my light, and death the shadow of my face. Let us now learn about the poet. As we all know, Sarojini Naidu was born on 1879 and died in 1949. She was a famous freedom fighter and a poet. She was one of the great orators of her time and was famously known as Bharatiya Kokila, or the Nightingale of India. Sarojini Naidu was the first Indian woman to become the president of the Indian National Congress and a governor of an Indian state. Her collections of poems include The Golden Threshold, The Bird of Time, and The Broken Wings. Now let us try to understand the structure of the poem. The poem, The Soul's Prayer, is divided into 7 stanzas, and each stanza has 4 lines each. The rhyme of the poem is in A, B in all the stanzas, and the meter of the poem is in iambic tetrameter. It is iambic because the syllables, it starts with the sound with low accent followed by high accent. For example, in the first stanza, in the first line, in childhood's pride, I say to thee. So the sound of low accent followed by high accent, low accent, high accent, it is known as iambic. And it is in tetrameter because altogether in every line, in every stanza, the lines has 8 syllables or 4 measures. So it has 4 measures, therefore it is known as tetrameter. The main theme of the poem is the poet's aspiration for universal truth. Accordingly, the poem opens with the poet's recollection of her childhood's prayer. In the first stanza, the poet says that in childhood's pride. So the poet, when she was still a child and she was proud that she was made by God, she asked the Master, the Maker, O thou who madest me of thy bread. So she was aware that she was made by the bread of God. And then she is asking, Speak, Master, and reveal to me thine inmost laws of life and death. So right from her childhood, the poet wants to understand about the universal truth about the ways of life and death of mankind. And in order to have the wisdom about universal truth, the poet, she asked, as we can see in the second stanza, give me to drink its joy and pain. So she is not only asking for all the joys of life, but also about the pain, which thine eternal hand can meet. So she accepts. So she knows that both joy and pain, it is distributed, it is allotted, it is given by God. For my insatiate soul means unsatisfied soul. So she was unsatisfied because she wants to learn, she wants to have the knowledge and understanding about wisdom, about God's ways. For my insatiate soul would drain earth's utmost bitter and utmost sweet. So in order to have the overall wisdom about God's ways, she could even drain, she could even have the experience both about the bitter and about the sweet experience. The poet knows that the wisdom of universal truth can be achieved if one can have the overall experiences of life. That is, both about the joy and about the painful life. Therefore, in order to have the overall experiences about the universal truth, in the third stanza, the poet says that spare me no bliss, no pain of strife. So she is asking from God that she should experience every aspects of life. Withhold no gift or grief I crave. So the poet, she even craves for the gift and also for the grief that God would have given her. The intricate lore of love and life. So all the intricate lore means complex traditional knowledge or traditional oral sources of knowledge and wisdom. So she is asking for the intricate lore, the traditional oral sources of understanding about love and life, and mystic knowledge of the grave. So the grave, it is all about the mystic being. So she wants to understand the knowledge about death, about grave. In the fourth stanza, the poet says that indeed Lord has answered to her prayer. She says, Lord, thou didst answer stern and low. God says, child, I will hearken to thy prayer. Hearken means I will listen to your prayer. And thy unconquered soul. So her soul is unconquered because she did not fear any strife or any conflict or any pain, suffering that mankind would have ever witnessed. And she is asking for both joy and about the pain. So she was unconquered. She was determined. She was strong-willed to learn about the universal truth that only God, which only God can give her. And the unconquered soul shall know all passionate rapture and despair. So according to her prayer, God will answer, God will give the understanding, God will give her the knowledge, the wisdom about all the rapture, about all the happiness, about all the great happiness, and about all the despair of mankind and about this life. And in the fifth stanza, Godfather says that thou shalt drink deep of joy and fame, and love shall burn thee like a fire. So in everything God's will, in everything God's did, she will be given love. And out of love, she will burn like a fire. And pain shall cleanse thee like a flame. So the pain, it will purify her soul, it will purify her mind, and it will be cleansed like a flame. To purge the dross from thy desire. So whatever limitations or drawbacks or whatever very poor quality of desire she has, it will be purged or it will be purified by God. In the 6th stanza, Godfather says that, "So shall thy chastened spirit yearn." Chastened here means humble. So the poet humbled herself toward God in order to understand the universal truth of God and about the ways of life. Her spirit has yearned or wished to have the universal truth which God will bestow upon her. And then she said, to seek from its blind prayer release. Her prayer is like a blind prayer because she actually don't know what she is actually asking from God. And for that, God has pardoned her. But out of humbleness, she has asked the just ways of understanding the universal truth from God. And because she has asked, she has should to learn the simple secret of God's peace. God will give her the wisdom of understanding the simple secret of God's peace. And in the last stanza, God promises the poet that God will bend from his sevenfold height because the poet has humbled towards God in order to understand the ways of God and about the universal truth of life and death. Therefore, God will also bend himself to answer her prayer. Will teach thee of my quickening grace, how graceful God is. And then God says that life is a prism of my light, and that the shadow of my face. God has answered the poet's prayer in the last two lines. So these two lines is a metaphorical statement. God says that life is a prism. So God has compared life to a prism and God himself as a light. As we all know, the light, as it passes to a prism, it gives several multiple colors of light. So similarly, the same light that comes from God, it is in a several dimensions. As we all know, God's ways are always just and in a several ways. And that is the shadow of God's face. It is God who gives life, and it is God who can also take life. Therefore, that is nothing but the shadow of God's face. Thus, the Soul's Prayer by Sarojini Naidu is a lyric and it has a spiritual theme. The Soul's Prayer narrates the poet's imaginary conversation with God as she pleads God. And then God replied to her prayer, which follows in the latter half of the poem. And the poem is an ardent expression of the author's yearning for universal truths relating to love and death, separation and longing, and about the mystery of life. The vocabulary and phraseology is at once delicate, powerful, and passionate, giving the poem an ethereal quality. So today we have concisely learned about the Soul's Prayer by Sarojini Naidu. If you like the tutorial, please do like, comment, share and subscribe. Thank you for watching and enjoy learning.